What the hook gonna be? Uh-oh. Yeah. If you guys have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you guys do that. If you haven't downloaded the Anchor app, make sure you do that. If you guys are watching on YouTube and figure out or trying to wonder why I'm jamming over here, it's because you don't know anything about Murphy Lee. And you don't know what the hook gonna be. Dirty ENT. We all we got. I mean, that's classic stuff right there. Hey, appreciate you guys. Welcome to the Unofficial Review. My name's Charles Wilson. Back at you guys with another episode, action-packed episode. Again, this is our second video that's going to be posted on YouTube. I'll have more details coming soon. We're thinking about migrating over to Twitch to where we can do live streaming, but that actually requires more equipment. So again, we'll be working on that. But again, hey, we love the support that you guys are giving the show. Again, this stuff is growing because of you guys listening to the show. Big shout out to our sponsor, King of the Game Media, the best in high school sports highlights. Make sure you guys check them out on Twitter and Instagram at KOTG Media. You can also go onto their website at KOTG.com. And make sure you guys go quick because they have a Cyber Monday sale that ends on Friday. Cyber Monday week sale. So everything on the site is on sale. Make sure you guys go over there and show some support. Again, King of the Game is a business that I run. Best in high school sports highlights. We're providing high school athletes with a platform to get more exposure. So all the money goes back to investing into the business to provide more exposure. So I appreciate that. But again, if you guys don't have the Anchor app, make sure you download that, anchor.fm. You can go on there. Also, if you look in the description, I'll have a link to the podcast as well. Again, we're thinking about going to Twitch, but I'll keep you guys updated with that move because we do want to live stream these podcasts. Right now, we're just doing the video to post it, just so you guys can see my reaction to certain news. But I'm gonna get straight into it. I was wrong, man. I was wrong. I was right, and then I was wrong. No, first I was wrong, and then I was right. And then I was really wrong. But I think I was right because I jumped off the bandwagon at the end. I'm talking about Michigan, Ohio State. If you guys haven't been listening to the last podcast, initially I said Michigan would beat Ohio State this season. Obviously, I'm not even going to get to what happened during the game, but I ended up changing my prediction when Ohio State lost to Purdue. Because I didn't anticipate that. I anticipated Ohio State going in undefeated and Michigan going in with one loss, to where Ohio State obviously would be more lax, I would assume, going into the game 11, or they would be going into the game 11-0, while Michigan would be going into the game 10-1. Now it felt like a playoff game at first. Actually, before the game started, because as soon as the game started, Ohio State took off and Michigan tried to make it a game with a couple of turnovers and touchdowns, but it just didn't work out that way. And if you guys watched the game, well, actually, so after Ohio State lost to Purdue, I was out. They got blown out by Purdue. I was out. At that point, I knew Ohio State was going to beat Michigan. And then Michigan kept playing well, which kind of, they wanted me to go back and jump on the bandwagon. But I don't believe I jumped back on. So if you guys could find the clip of where I said Michigan will still win, that's the latest thing I said, then you could call me out. But after Ohio State lost to Purdue, I was out. I'm not on that bandwagon. And I didn't think they were gonna get blown out. I watched the game from start to finish. Ohio State, got off to an early lead. Again, touchdown. I think it was a muff punt. That led to another Michigan touchdown to where they made it a game, and it was a close game, and Ohio State took off. If you guys watched the game, Michigan could not stop the drag routes. These crossing routes, Michigan just didn't know what to do. Unfortunately, their defenders Ohio State's receivers were more athletic than Michigan's defenders. And when you're playing man coverage on defense for Michigan, and Ohio State is, running crossing routes, it comes down to it comes down to speed, unless the defender already reads it, which, they damn near ran crossing routes the whole game, and Michigan couldn't figure it out. It literally was the demise of Michigan, who was supposed to be a top 2 ranked defense in college football, and they couldn't even stop a drag route, crossing routes. It was like Madden. You got those Madden plays where, somebody finds a glitch in the system and the play always works. It was like that. The person was always wide open. And again, Michigan didn't have an answer for it. Unfortunately, a loss like this is devastating for the Michigan program. Jim Harbaugh over there, because he was on his revenge tour. And, Michigan, their offense came out flat. Shea Patterson let me down. I was pretty high on Shea Patterson. He ended the game 20 of 34, 187, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. But again, it was just Ohio State from the jump. It was the blocked punt that was returned for a touchdown. So this is when I knew the game was over. Michigan was going off the punt on their own 20, and Ohio State obviously went for the block. And from there, they ended up blocking the kick, and the ball went straight into the air. Usually, the punt will bounce and somebody scoops it. An Ohio State player literally caught it in stride, like out of the air, and didn't even break stride, was running straight to the end zone. And from there, you knew Michigan's spirit was broken, and it was bad from there. I know Shea Patterson got hurt in the end of the game. So Michigan's season is over. They will not be playing for a national championship game. I don't care if every team in front of them loses. They still won't be playing for a national championship game. They don't deserve it after getting stomped by Ohio State. It was at Ohio State, so I'll cut them a little bit of slack, but getting blown out, that's uncalled for Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines. And I'm sure the fans aren't happy about that at all. I can't find a Michigan fan now. I've better luck finding Wolverine from the comic book from Marvel than finding a Michigan fan right now who's willing to show their face in public. But okay, so Ohio State in the current rankings moved up to 6. Michigan dropped from 4 to 7. I believe Ohio State was at 11, and they jumped up 5 spots to 6. So I have the actual. Actually, let me go back to Ohio State because I do want to give some credit to Dwayne Haskins. Now these stats were a little bit inflated because of the crossing routes and the yards after catch. But Dwayne Haskins was finding his receivers. He did have some good throws into the end zone that weren't crossing routes where he just made a great throw. And you got to give him credit because he came in 6 touchdowns, 20 of 31, 396, 6 touchdowns against the vaunted Michigan defense. And again, it was pathetic. Who didn't have a great day from Ohio State? They looked great. Ohio State looked good. So, again, big shout out to Ohio State. Just going through the college football rankings for the playoffs. And I'm just going to go through. I'll go through the top 10. And so here are my locks. Alabama's in. Clemson is in. And Notre Dame is in. Notre Dame is for sure in because I don't even think they play anybody for the championship because they're not. They don't have a game to win a conference. So Alabama has the SEC championship game versus number 4 Georgia. Clemson has their ACC championship. Notre Dame doesn't have a game this week, so Notre Dame is good. So Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, good. Georgia is going against Alabama. They're good. Well, actually, no, they're not good. If Georgia loses to Alabama and say Oklahoma, Ohio State lose, I think Georgia still makes it because Michigan is out, UCF is out with their quarterback Milton, who had to have immediate surgery on his leg after a nasty tackle. They're out. You can't they're undefeated, but you can't put them in without the quarterback. Florida, 3 loss, they're out. LSU, Washington. I mean, those teams are out. No good. No bueno. So Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame are in, guaranteed. Unless Georgia beats Alabama, then Georgia's in. Then we'll have 2 SEC teams again. Same 2 that made it last year. But I anticipate Alabama beating Georgia. It'll be a closer game than people think. So don't sleep on Georgia, because Georgia's going to be coming to play. They're going to play Alabama pretty tough. It's going to be Alabama's toughest game to date. But I think Alabama and Tua pulls it off. And a big performance from Tua will lock up the Heisman for him over Kyler Murray, who obviously some people have him as a front runner for Heisman. Rightfully so in some people's eyes, because Oklahoma's defense is that bad. Oklahoma's defense gives up 40 on a good night. So if you guys watched the Oklahoma-West Virginia game, that was actually a good one. I talked about it in my last podcast. It was pretty entertaining. They're going back and forth. It was a high-scoring game, as we anticipated. And the winner of the game was to meet Texas in the Big 12 championship game. Obviously, Oklahoma won the game, so they'll be going against Texas in the Red River rivalry. That's hard to say. I guess it's not technically the Red River rivalry again, because the first game during the regular season is. I guess technically you could call this the Red River rivalry part 2, because this is the one that actually matters for Oklahoma. And if you ask me, if Ohio State, so I think the debate right now is between Ohio State and Oklahoma, and people are saying if both teams win, which team would you put in? Personally, I would put in Oklahoma, depending on how they win this game. Ohio State's going to beat Northwestern, unfortunately. I got love for the Wildcats, but I mean, Ohio State is just, again, Ohio State's on another level at this moment. But I think the deciding factor when it comes down to both these teams who are 11-1 is that Oklahoma lost to a rival, Texas, in a close game, opposed to Ohio State getting blown out by Purdue. And don't get me wrong, Ohio State has the better win because their big win is over Michigan. Oklahoma's big win, I mean, you could say West Virginia. West Virginia is tough. West Virginia is no slouch. I was giving them crap earlier this season when they were ranked number 6 in the nation. But man, Greer for West Virginia, the quarterback, is legit. If you ask me, if he's coming out this year in the NFL draft, I think he's the best quarterback coming out in the draft this year. Over Browner, over the quarterback from Oregon. This guy Greer could throw the ball. He's smart, and I think he could make every single throw, and he's athletic. So Greer is definitely a name to watch in next year's draft, 2019. I like him. He could play a lot. He was a transfer from Florida, and we talked about him a little bit with my boy Lee. Shout out to Lee for supporting the show. We're going to have to have him on. But I'm going to wait for Jacksonville to win first. Then I'll get him on the show. Because Jacksonville, I don't know if Lee wants to get on the show with Jacksonville looking like this. They benched Blake Bortles, but I'm not gonna kick a man while he's down. Okay, that's just uncalled for. But again, if it was between me, Ohio State, and Oklahoma, Oklahoma's ranked number 5 currently. Ohio State's ranked number 6. I think that's a good indication from the committee saying that if both teams win, close games, then Oklahoma's is gonna jump Georgia, because I believe Georgia's gonna lose, and Ohio State will not jump Oklahoma because Texas is actually ranked number 14 and Northwestern is ranked 21. So Oklahoma has the tougher test versus Texas, who's lost some close games this year, especially to West Virginia on a 2-point conversion. That was a great game too. I mean, Big 12 football was exciting this year. I wish I could say the same for Pac-12 football. Although ASU won, ASU in the house, Forks up. They got the big win over. that school in Tucson in the desert where nobody wants to go. The Wildcats, I think that's what they're called. They got a big win over them. So that's a good closing win for Herm Edwards and the ASU Sun Devils. I got to give props to Manny Wilkins. He did do his thing in that game. N'Keal Harry's last game, he is declared for the NFL draft. His plan was to forego his senior season to enter the draft for next year. He will be he'll be a first, second round pick. But wish nothing but the best from him or for him. He's a local product. Went to Chandler High. Also went to Marcos Deniza in Tempe. So he's a local guy, and I think the only knock on him right now is teams they want to see his ability to run the whole route tree. It makes sense because ASU's offense doesn't require their receivers to run the whole route tree. They're very limited on that coming out of the spread offense. So I think he could do it. He just has to prove it to teams, and I think he will. Big frame, fast, strong, yards after the catch. N'Keal Harry's a baller. So big shout out to him. But yeah, that's my take on Ohio State and Oklahoma. I hope that Oklahoma wins because I don't think Ohio State could beat Alabama. Obviously, whoever gets in at number 4, whether it's Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, I think Oklahoma will have the best opportunity to beat Alabama because they can score points. And that's what you need to do against Alabama. Alabama has historically been bad. At least Nick Saban defenses have been bad against quarterbacks that could run and throw. And Kyler Murray, again, who's the Heisman hopeful for most, the Heisman front runner for most people, is that guy. So again, I'm going for Oklahoma because I want to see a competitive college playoffs. I don't want to see Alabama win again. It's nice when you see other teams win. Alabama, obviously, they're the most talented team in the nation, arguably the best coach in the nation. So, the best team will win. And again, I'll be going for Oklahoma. Clemson and Notre Dame, I don't think will have a shot. Now, let me go to Notre Dame. Because I called this out in my last podcast that I believe I called it upset for USC. Now, obviously that didn't happen. But Notre Dame, if you guys watched the game, had a tough time with USC. And like I said, anything can happen in rivalry games. And USC was not going to wilt under the pressure. Now, obviously, now that they lost, there's some pressure on Herman to produce in this next year because Lynn Swann and USC have already announced that they plan on having Herman there for another year. He's a great recruiter, don't get me wrong, and I think he's building a good program over there, but now, he's firing coaches. You could tell that, I think he's gotten a message from the athletic director that Lynn Swann that, things need to start picking up ASAP. You don't finish top 10 in recruiting every year to put up a horrible season. And again, this is horrible for USC standards. So Notre Dame, it was a pretty good game. It was a night game at USC. Again, a rivalry game. Anything could happen. So I wasn't surprised that the game was a lot closer than what the score indicated. Because if you guys watch the game, again, it was a close game. Notre Dame was having trouble with USC. Problems. I had to start with college football, but now we get into the NFL. And, I'm not going to talk about the Eagles. Not going to talk about them because they beat the Giants. All right, they beat the damn Giants, who were 3-7. As pathetic as it is, 3-7 was still competitive, and they had a chance to still win the NFC East, which again is a shame. But again, I'm not going to start with that. I'm going to actually go off. Now I think it's time in the season where I believe it's week 13 coming up. It's that time in the season where you can start ranking teams because you've seen enough. And most teams have had 11 games, if not all teams. And I'm going to rank every single team Well, not every single team. I'm gonna rank the top 5 teams that I currently have in the NFL, and I'll start at number 5. And you guys are gonna be surprised at this list. If you guys don't have the same list, that's fine. But this is my list. I don't have to justify it to anyone. You guys can kick rocks. But here it is. Number 5 from the Midwest. Number 1 in the NFC North. 8-3. My boy Tree in the house. I was giving him a lot of crap earlier in the season when Chicago looked decent. It looked all right. But that defense is legit. Led by Khalil Mack, obviously. Roquan Smith is a baller. But that defense is ferocious. Ferocious. I mean, Roquan Smith is one of the players that is up, I believe, for defensive rookie of the year. I think it's between him or Lathan Vander Esch from Dallas. I mean, he's also a great linebacker. I was laughing at the pick when Dallas got him, but man, this dude, every time I'm watching the game, which is not often, as they're playing the damn Eagles, the dude's making plays. This dude was playing 8-on-8 high school football, walked on at Boise State, and now he's, I mean, as a rookie, he's up there as one of the best defensive rookies in the class. And so is Roquan Smith, who currently has 81 combined tackles and 4 sacks on the season. So, again, Chicago has some rough riders. I mean, Danny Trevathan's another good cover linebacker. Prince Nakamura, I'm not really big on him, but he's been having a solid season. Adrian Amos from Penn State, big hitter. Again, he's the enforcer. Obviously, you got Kyle Fuller who could play. Eddie Jackson, Akeem Hicks, all these guys. Again, Khalil Mack is the name that everybody knows. And as you could tell in my last podcast, I didn't talk about John Gruden because they haven't given me a reason to talk about them, unless it's them losing or getting rid of talent. So Chicago, I have at number 5, and if you think about it, the only thing that they need to work on, or obviously Mitch Trubisky needs to get healthy. Chase Daniel was the one that played on Thanksgiving, and he did pretty solid as they took out the Detroit Lions. Jordan Howard has had a surprising year as far as he's regressed a little bit, but I think if they keep feeding him the ball and Cohen feeding them the ball, I think that they make moves and they'll be okay. But Mitch Trubisky has had an average year, but that's all he needs to have for the Chicago Bears. He's not a guy that's going to take over the game. He's a guy that's going to manage the game, but also make plays. I'm not going to put him in the Alex Smith category. Alex Smith is just check down. But I mean, wins games. They were number 1 in the NFC East prior to him, getting injured, messing up his knee or his leg. Sorry, broken leg. So that's who I got at number 5, Chicago. I think that they win the division. They're already 2 games up from Minnesota. And Chicago, again, defense is what's going to win in January. And whichever wild card team has to go to Chicago for Chicago's home game in January, that's going to be tough. So those wild card games are going to be tough. Again, I don't think anyone wants to go to Chicago in January with the weather as it is. Chicago is right now the second ranked defense when it comes to points. And then for rushing yards, they're the second best team. Total yards, they're the 4th best defense in football. So again, their defense is putting in work and they're pretty much carrying the team. But I mean, that's the Chicago Bears that we know. That's their identity. You bring in, Tressman. He tries to turn it into the Jay Cutler show offense. It was just a disaster. I think he lasted 1 year, and that was pretty much a downturn for the Bears. But the Bears have been doing great work so far to get their team back up. But the talent, Mitch Trubisky, I didn't think he was better than Deshaun Watson. Or I had mixed reviews about Pat Mahomes, but I didn't think he was better than Deshaun Watson. So I don't think he should have been drafted over him, but I don't think he's terrible quarterback either. So, Mitch Trubisky is doing what he can to help the team, and that's number 5. Number four, you guys won't be surprised about this because they're probably top 5 team every single season. The New England Patriots, first place in the AFC East, 8-3. I mean, what else do I have to say? Tom Brady, Gronkowski is back. Edelman, Sony Michel is back. Sony Michel is back from injury. Rex Burkhead is back. You got Josh Gordon, Cordero Patterson. I mean, these guys. New England's gonna be there at the end. They're going to make it to the AFC Championship game. They're probably going to run into Kansas City. And, obviously, whoever wins the AFC Championship game goes to the Super Bowl. So, I think New England and Kansas City right now are fighting for home field advantage because that is big. Playing in Kansas City or playing in New England could be the deciding factor for either of those teams that are trying to make it to the Super Bowl. I think it's a 2-team race in the AFC. No offense to the Chargers, who look pretty solid, but I don't think the Chargers could beat New England or Kansas City. So I'm not going to go too far on New England because obviously that's just a team that's just there every year. The Eagles beat them last year, but, we just beat them in the Super Bowl, So I was a pretty solid game. The third team. Now, some people might have this team as number 1. I don't because they're on a good run, but I still don't believe them as a team yet. And I'm talking about the New Orleans Saints, who won 10 in a row after losing their first game to their division rival, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Saints I have at number 3. Now, this offense is the best offense in football as far as points go, averaging 37.2 points a game for the season. That's crazy. Obviously, my Eagles have seen the full brunt of that force a couple weeks ago in the Superdome, and I don't want to reminisce on that game because it was just terrible. But New Orleans, the reason I have New Orleans at number 3 is yes, they beat the Rams. And obviously they stopped the last 4 or 5 teams that they played against by 20 plus, by over 24 points on average. But I think that if you're a toss-up between the Rams and New Orleans, yes, New Orleans beat the Rams, but I think that the Rams have a better chance of getting home field in front of the Saints. Now, if the Saints get home field, then Saints are going to be going to the Super Bowl. But I think that the Rams' division is easier. Obviously, division games, anything can happen, but New Orleans' division games are a lot more difficult than playing the 49ers, Seattle. Who else is in that division? That's how bad it is. Oh, Arizona. Terrible. So, the Rams have an easier schedule moving forward than New Orleans. New Orleans, obviously, tomorrow, Thursday, they play Dallas, which I'm thinking it's going to be an upset. Not to say that Dallas is should be in the top 5 or they're better than New Orleans, but I think that they have the recipe to beat New Orleans as far as the run game with Zeke Elliott, Dak Prescott making throws, and their defense being tough and physical. I see them giving Drew Brees trouble tomorrow. And I think that they use Ezekiel Elliott to keep Drew Brees off of the field. I honestly think that there's going to be an upset tomorrow with Dallas and New Orleans. They got Dallas underdog by 7.5, which I would take, but that's if I was a betting man. I'm not. Saints, number 1 rush defense in football. That's because they score so much points. Teams have to vacate the run and then just start throwing the ball, which leads to forced turnovers and a whole bunch of mistakes, fumbles, all that stuff. Because the Saints are a pretty complete team. Again, it's gonna be difficult to beat them, but again, all this stuff comes down to home field advantage because that's pretty big. That's big. So New Orleans, I have them at number 3. Number 2, I talked about them a little bit. The Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams. And you might be wondering, again, I already justified why I have the Rams in front of New Orleans. They have an easier schedule moving forward. But I also want to add another thing why I have the Rams at number 2. They're number 1 in the NFC West, which is a pathetic division. They have one good team in that division. The NFC East, I guess you could say they have no good teams in that division. But again, I think all teams in the NFC East are better than the rest of the teams in the NFC West, minus the Rams. Arizona's pathetic. The Niners are pathetic. 2 teams that are fighting for a number 1 spot. I guarantee both of them will have a top 5 pick this season in the NFL draft. And Seattle, they beat Carolina, but that was who believes Carolina is gonna make a run this year. So the Rams. Another reason why I'm putting the Rams in front of the Saints is because I believe in the Rams' offense to score points in the playoffs with Todd Gurley, Jared Goff, and I think that they have more weapons on offense than the Saints do on their offense. So obviously, again, you got Goff, you got Todd Gurley, who's going to, that run game is going to be wherever they go, whether they go on the road or not. Then you also got Robert Woods, who's a stud. Obviously, the loss of Cooper Kupp is going to be big for the Rams because he was their third down guy. He was the guy that was going to be making the catches in tough situations to convert those long yardage situations. Cooper Kupp is a huge loss. You could make an argument that in the passing game, he was the most important player other than the quarterback, obviously. So that's a big loss. But again, you got Brandon Cooks. You got Josh Reynolds, who I think is a legit receiver out of Texas A&M. I wanted the Eagles to draft him. The Rams drafted 2 receivers this year or last year that I thought the Eagles should have drafted, which was Cooper Kupp and Josh Reynolds. Back-to-back picks, which obviously I wasn't happy about that because both of them could play. And Josh Reynolds' game last week was pretty solid. The dude could play, and he's a big receiver. He's 6'4". Probably 6'4", I'm going to guess 195. Okay, so they got him at 6'3", 196. So I'm close. He might have grew another inch. So I could be spot on. But yeah, you got Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, Todd Gurley, Cooper Kupp's not in there. But I just think that the Rams have more offense. And I believe that their offense is probably the best offense in football. I think that the Rams' offense is the best offense in football. I don't care what the numbers say. I know that it's pointing towards, Drew Brees in New Orleans or Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. But I think the Rams, as far as talent-wise, have the best offense in football. And I would take their offense over everyone's because of Todd Gurley. He's an absolute stud. I think he's the best running back in football. Some people will think Le'Veon Bell. They'll think, Ezekiel Elliott. And I'm not saying this because Le'Veon Bell has been out the whole season. I've been saying this last year. Todd Gurley, I think, has the tools to be the best running back in football. And obviously, he's proving it now that he is. So the Rams have at number 2. Again, it's going to come down to them winning out. They still got the Eagles on the schedule, so that's going to be tough to win out. So their remaining schedule is. Okay, so here you go. So they got Detroit. They're at Detroit, which they should beat Detroit easily. This is a game where I think they lose. They're at Chicago at Soldier Field, and it looks like it's on a Sunday night. That's a tough game. And then the following Sunday night, they got the Eagles. It's at LA, of course. I don't know why 2 years in a row you have it at LA. You know, the NFL schedulers, if you guys are watching. And then they have 2 easy wins, which are basically 2 bye weeks before the playoffs. They got at Arizona, which is damn near a vacation for them. And then, you know, they got San Francisco coming to the Memorial Coliseum, which again, San Francisco is a joke too. So you get 2 bye weeks before the playoffs. And they're going to get a bye week again. So it's basically they got 3 weeks off until they play a meaningful game after they play the Eagles. Because the Eagles, you know, we're going to be scoring with them. All right? It ain't going to be no walking apart like the Saints. They ain't going to get pushed around again. But yeah, so the Rams are number 2. Number 1, already talked about them, the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. They're 9-2. And people are like, oh, well, the Rams beat them. New England beat them. How are they the number 1 ranked team? So for a few reasons, the Kansas City is the number one team. I think that, I mean, obviously other than Brady and Breeze, I think he's a better. Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than Jared Goff. He's a better quarterback than Mitch Trubisky. Again, Kansas City should run through the AFC unless they run into New England, which most likely will happen. It just depends on where it's going to be going. Again, Kansas City is 9-2. New England is 8-3. Kansas City, I believe, still have to play the Los Angeles Chargers. So they got Oakland, win. They got Baltimore, win. They got the Chargers. They got at Seattle. And then they got, at Seattle, it's going to be a tough game because Seattle always plays good at home. But they got the Raiders twice, Baltimore, and then you have Seattle and the Chargers, which are 2 games that obviously aren't gimme games, but the 2 against Oakland are also easy. I'm starting Patrick Mahomes in my fantasy team this week, so hopefully he could carry me to the playoffs because I need some help. I need help. But yeah, I'm very impressed with the Rams offense. They got weapons all over the field. Patrick Mahomes, Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins. I mean, these guys could play. Patrick Mahomes is going to be a solid. I mean, he's already moving into the upper echelon of young quarterbacks. I don't think he's better than Carson Wentz yet, and I'm not saying that because I'm an Eagles fan. It's because he has more weapons than Carson Wentz. Don't get me wrong, Carson Wentz has weapons. He has Alshon Jeffrey, he got Zach Ertz, Golden Tate now, but he doesn't have a run game. He doesn't have a Kareem Hunt where he can hand the ball off to, and you have a 100-yard back who could get 100 yards receiving, 100 yards rushing in any given game. He doesn't have that. So that's why I have Kansas City over the Rams. Again, even though the Rams beat Kansas City, it was a close game. There was a lot of turnovers by Kansas City in that game. It was a dirty game. But I think on a neutral field, I think Kansas City beats Los Angeles, which I'm not ready to say that's going to be the Super Bowl matchup because it's hard to pass up New England. I think at this, it's starting to get to. I'm starting to realize that people are living on New England's history. I don't think New England is as good as they were last year. And again, people say it every year because they start off slow. But I think you're seeing a regression of New England. The wheels are falling off. I mean, obviously you had the drama in the beginning of the season with Belichick and McDaniels ruining the Eagles coaching staff. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But again, I've Bears at 5, New England at 4, Saints at 3, Rams at 2, Kansas City at 1. Where are the Eagles on that list? They're not on the list. So I'm not even gonna talk about the Eagles because they beat the Giants. I'm not impressed with that. If they win this weekend, They got Washington this weekend against Colt McCoy. Now, the only game I'll be impressed at if they beat Dallas in Dallas, or if they beat the Rams. But again, if they beat Washington, with Colt McCoy, again, Washington has our number every year. Last year we swept them, but that was our year last year. It's Washington. They're not at full strength. They got a lot of injuries. So do the Eagles. But at this point, I'm waiting to. If they win this game, okay, cool. If they beat Dallas, I'll be impressed with that. And if they beat the Rams, I'll be very impressed with that. But I'm not holding my breath. Now let me stay on football. I had another topic, but you guys are gonna like this one because I've heard a lot about it, and I've seen. It's kind of funny, but at the same time, a lot of people have their opinions on it. And it's Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns with Hugh Jackson, who obviously was fired from the Browns this year. The whole drama between that, I can see it. Baker Mayfield is a competitor, so him not even getting an opportunity to compete in the beginning of the season to beat out Tyrod Taylor, obviously is that's something that he held on to, and obviously he was pissed from the jump. It wasn't a good start to a relationship. Hugh Jackson went on First Take, said that he wished he had that moment back, or it was Undisputed, one of the two shows. I know he was on both of them, but he had different things to say on each show. But Hugh Jackson, if you guys haven't seen this on Hard Knocks, HBO, if you have HBO Go, make sure you go watch that Hard Knocks with the Browns. It's actually pretty good. Hugh Jackson brought in Baker Mayfield and Drew Stanton. Obviously Tyrod Taylor's not there. He was named the starter, but brought in Baker Mayfield, the number 1 overall pick, and Drew Stanton was a journeyman out of Michigan State. I thought he was going to be pretty good when he came out, 10 years ago. Brought them into his office and congratulated Baker on winning the backup job. Now, I don't know how competitive you guys are, but I'm pretty damn competitive, and I know Baker Mayfield's a competitive guy. And telling somebody that they won second place is, it's almost like you're rubbing it in their face. You're making a fool out of them. Because nobody plays to win second. Nobody plays to lose the Super Bowl. Nobody, works that hard, during the off season, or nobody, puts in all this work outside, off the field to come up short. So, that could have been handled a different way. Hugh Jackson admits that now, but he still did it. So I know Baker Mayfield is not happy about that. But obviously Hugh Jackson got fired, and this is where people started having their opinions. Hugh Jackson gets fired. Obviously he gets a job with Cincinnati, and Baker Mayfield is asked. So it started off with a small comment asking if Baker Mayfield and Cleveland Browns were afraid that Hugh Jackson would have, extra insight on the Browns since he coached there. Now he's coaching for the Bengals, and they were playing each other. And Baker Mayfield's quote was, "No, just no." And he was smiling while he did it, and I could see that he didn't want to laugh. That smile that he had when he said it told me enough of what he thought about Hugh Jackson as a coach and as a football mind. So Baker Mayfield, again, now that's where it started. So now game time. Baker Mayfield's lighting up, Cleveland. And Damaris Randall picks off the ball, former ASU Sun Devil. He picks off the ball. And he picks it off on Cincinnati's sideline, right in the breadbasket. And then, for some reason, it might have been coincidence, Hugh Jackson standing right there on the sideline as he runs out of bounds. He sees Hugh Jackson, hands him the interception, the ball that he just intercepted from Hugh Jackson's quarterback, Andy Dalton, who's out for the season. Some people didn't think that was a shot at Hugh Jackson. I thought it was a shot. If if I'm your coach, if I'm your former coach, and you pick off the quarterback that I'm coaching, and then hand me the ball to intercept, that's not showing respect. That's like, oh yeah, here's that ball. Hold on to that. Hold that real quick. Hold this work. And I thought it was hilarious. Hugh Jackson, put the ball down and threw it behind him. He wasn't too happy. I don't know what his thoughts were on that. He probably won't make them public. I know he felt some way because he tapped him on the helmet and threw the ball down. He was trying to be a class act, but it is what it is. And then after the game, this is where Baker Mayfield and Hugh Jackson start getting more. This is where everybody's showing all their attention because obviously the game's over. Players are coming in, coaches are coming in, saying what's up to their people, saying what's up to their friends. So I have the video in front of me right now. So Baker Mayfield is saying what's up to Vontaze Burfict, or chopping it up with Vontaze Burfict, also former ASU Sun Devil. And Hugh Jackson, you can see Hugh Jackson walking up. Obviously Hugh Jackson had this planned out before he got off the sideline. Okay, I'm going to go say what's up to Baker. No hard feelings. You can see he called Baker twice. So Baker Mayfield turned around. Hugh Jackson, put his hand out. So you could tell, usually you do the lock. You do the lock and then the thing. So Hugh Jackson went in for the lock. And Baker Mayfield grabbed his hand and shook it instead. And Hugh Jackson tried to go in for the the hug, because hey, with brothers, you got the lock, you got the hug, and then you got the right here, you got the hug, and then you got the boom. That's it. That's it. That's a lesson for you guys. Make sure you paying attention. If you want to rewind it, see how the handshake go. You got the lock, you got the hug. Pat on the back, and then you got the, that's just how it goes. That's a universal handshake. But so when Hugh Jackson did that, again, Baker grabbed his hand, shook it, but was at a distance to where his arm was extended. If you guys can read body language, when you extend your arm and keep them at a distance, it's like you're not trying to get close to them, you're not really that close to that person, because Hugh Jackson tried to go in for the hug. And Baker Mayfield was just like, oh yeah, all right, yeah, I'm not even trying to talk to you. He big time Hugh Jackson. Hey, he's a competitor. It is what it is. But after the game, they asked about Baker Mayfield. They asked Baker Mayfield about Hugh Jackson. He just said, he left Cleveland. Here's a direct quote. He left Cleveland, goes down to Cincinnati. I don't know. It's just somebody that's in our locker room asking for us to play for him, and then goes to a different team we play twice a year. Everybody can have their own spin on it, but that's just how I feel. Now, several analysts for ESPN and Fox have had their disputes or their opinions on this situation. Again, some of them have had disputes within their own employees, talking about this. And I'm talking about Damien Woody, who actually went back and forth with Baker Mayfield. And I'm not even going to get into that whole thing. It's on Twitter or Instagram, whatever. But Damien Woody also got into it with Will Kane, talking about, who was right, who was wrong in the situation. Again, there's two good points brought up. Baker Mayfield says you don't have to care what he thinks, which is correct. You don't. The fact that he feels that way and people are trying to change how he thinks is, come on, he's a grown man. He can think however he wants. On the other hand, Damien Woody tried to make a point to put Baker Mayfield and Hugh Jackson in the same boat, where Baker Mayfield actually left Texas Tech because he was a walk-on at Texas Tech. Obviously, they had Pat Mahomes and Davis Webb there at Texas Tech. That was a star-studded quarterback room for Cliff Kingsbury, who actually just got fired from Texas Tech. And I hope that the Eagles do something to interview this man as the offensive coordinator for the Eagles in 2019, because Mike Grove for the Eagles, that bum, that fraud, he don't know how to call plays, he doesn't know how to run the ball. Again, I'm not going to go into the Eagles. But Cliff Kingsbury, Eagles offensive coordinator in 2019, Eagles make it happen. Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, and Doug Peterson make it happen. So Baker Mayfield actually transferred out of Texas Tech and transferred to Oklahoma, which is within the Big 12. So Damian saying, hey, well, you did the same thing. Baker Mayfield said he didn't. Try to explain himself, and then, it's back and forth. It's at this point, it's nonsense. It's irrelevant. Like, it doesn't matter. Baker Mayfield said what he said. He's a competitor. I actually like Baker Mayfield, but I mean, at the same time, Hugh Jackson's got to find a job, and if that's a team that he's comfortable with going to. Obviously, he was there before he got the job with the Browns, so it wasn't like he just randomly picked Cincinnati. Like, he has a history with Marvin Lewis, who's a friend of his, and he's familiar with that system, so it's an easy transition. So, again, these guys can think however they want. Now, this might be the first time I talked about this sports on the podcast. We got a big fight coming up this weekend. And actually, no, I'm not. Before we get into that, I got another one. So I don't know if you guys watch UFC or mixed martial arts. UFC wasn't on this past weekend. You might have heard of Golden Boy Promotions with Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions actually had Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz 3, the trilogy. It's damn near, again, I think I talked about this last time. It's like a damn grudge match with, Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro, the boxing movie where, two 50, 60-year-old guys get in the ring. They got no business being there. You would think that it was even because both of them are around the same age and they're in the UFC at the same time. But if you guys watch the fight, clearly that wasn't the case. Neither fighter should have been in the ring, especially Chuck Liddell. But Oscar De La Hoya, this is his first. He's dabbling into the MMA world, trying to compete with the UFC, which is just not going to happen. UFC is just a monster right now. They got the best talent. They got some of the best talent in the world. Obviously, there's fighters all over the world in different associations or with different companies. But UFC obviously is one of the top when it comes to mixed martial arts in the world. So Oscar De La Hoya is trying to do a little money grab and host this Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz. I mean that. He's trying to make a quick buck, which, you can't fault him for that, but, you could get better fighters than two guys that have retired, around, 7-8 years ago. Like, they haven't fought in 7-8 years. And this is your main event. Like, it's not really a main event you want. If you ask me, it's Oscar De La Hoya. He's trying to make money. He's a businessman. Did he make money? He probably did. It was at the Forum. It looked like there was a lot of people in there, but you don't know if they gave the tickets out. Again, I'm not trying to hate on Golden Boy Promotions or Oscar De La Hoya, but it's just not something as. I would like to think of myself as a big UFC fan. I don't know all the fighters. I know the fighters that I know. The good fighters. You got your John Jones, Daniel Cormier. That's you got Conor McGregor, Khabib, Nate Diaz. I think Nick Diaz is coming back. I heard Anderson Silva's having a fight again. I know more. It's just you got. I'm super excited about the women's fight that's coming up on the John Jones Gustafson card with Amanda Nunes and Cyborg. That's actually probably the biggest fight I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to John Jones fight, but I think that the Amanda Nunes and the Chris Cyborg fight is going to probably be one of the fights of the year. I mean, that's big time. That might be the biggest women's MMA fight ever for UFC. I mean, this is two champions going at it. Nobody wants to fight Chris Cyborg. And then you have, the striker, May Nunez, who's, complete. Obviously, she's smaller, but she's moving up to fight. And, Chris Cyborg is used to being a bully, but I think Amanda Nunez striking is something that she is going to be very surprised with. I think Amanda Nunez is going to win the fight. She's an underdog, but if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would put money on Amanda Nunez. So I'm excited for that. I think that's on December 29th. So I'm excited for that fight to come up. Let me just make sure. Yeah, December 29th with John Jones Gustafson 2, which I'm happy that John Jones is back. And then Amanda Nunez, Chris Cyborg. So that's going to be a big fight. But anyways, go back to the Oscar De La Hoya thing. If you guys watched the pre-fight press conference the day before, or a couple days before the fight, you'll see Oscar De La Hoya, literally reading everything off a piece of paper because he didn't know the guys that were there. He didn't even know how to say Chuck Liddell. So it was kind of embarrassing that your main card, number one, you have two guys that are, right around 50, if not 50 already, over 50. But now that you don't know how to say the names, and you're saying that, MMA legends, which both of them are, Chuck Liddell more than Tito Ortiz. But, you say Chuck Liddell, that's just, when you hear that as an MMA fan, you should know already that, it's a joke. They actually lined up fighters behind Oscar De La Hoya during that press conference, and he didn't know any of their names. Again, you have fighters fighting, under Golden Boy Promotions MMA, and you don't even know their names. You write it down, you read it. And the funniest thing about that was Dana White's interview with Fox, I believe it was. I don't know who it was with, but Dana White has an interview. You guys should go check it out. He's just ripping Oscar De La Hoya in half, ripping him to shreds. Probably one of the funnier press conference, or not the press conference, but like a conference call interview that I've heard. I actually listened to it about 5-6 times, and I just laugh every time. But yeah, it's not something I could play on Anchor airwaves. All right, so especially not on YouTube, because I want to keep a clean channel. So again, if you guys check out the video for both of them, for Oscar De La Hoya's press conference, as well as Dana White ripping him, again, funny stuff. But again, Chuck Liddell went in there. I'll just give you guys a recap. Chuck Liddell went in there against Tito Ortiz. After 10 seconds, you could see that Chuck Liddell was a slower fighter. Again, he had no business being in there. You could tell after 10 seconds how slow he was reacting to punches that Tito Ortiz was throwing at him. And then obviously he gets knocked out in the first round. Sometimes you got to save these fighters from themselves. These guys are going to fight. That's all they know. But I mean, sometimes you got to learn the hard way. But at the same time, you need friends there to tell you, hey, you need to hang him up. And Chuck Liddell, his homies need to go over there and tell him, hey, it's time to hang him up. But lastly, it's the last topic. I'm a big boxing fan, and I love big fights and boxing. I always try to watch them, and it's hard to get because boxing, you rarely get two guys that are at the highest level wanting to fight each other at the time that they are, at their peak. But this week we have the heavyweight championship fight, and the heavyweight class is being reborn. Because you have the WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder, who's 40-0, 39 knockouts. And for the guy that didn't get knocked out in that one time, he rematched Deontay Wilder and got knocked out in the first round. Stavern got just cleaned up in the first round. So everybody that Deontay Wilder has faced has gotten knocked out. He's basically, he's hitting 100. as we like to say in baseball. As you know, clearly they don't say that in baseball because nobody hits 100. So Deontay Wilder, the Bronze Bomber, 40-0, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the WBC heavyweight champion, is going against Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King himself. Manchester, New England, 27-0, 19 knockouts. I mean, both of these guys are, Wilder is 6'7", Tyson Fury is 6'8", almost 6'9". Both of them are orthodox fighters, but Tyson Fury is the lineal heavyweight champion. And again, so you have two undefeated heavyweight fighters. I mean, you would like to think both of them are at the prime of their career. Obviously, Tyson Fury's biggest win was over, how did I forget his name already? Tyson Fury, his biggest win. Man, I forgot that dude's name. Russian dude. But anyways, while I'm finding that, you have Deontay Wilder. His biggest win was in his last match versus Luis Ortiz, which he was in trouble in that fight. Ended up, toughening out. I mean, I thought he was going to get knocked out, but he ended up toughening out the fight. He was hurt several times and ended up knocking out Luis Ortiz in, I believe, the 10th round near the end of the fight. I mean, this guy is dangerous. He has the best right hand I've seen. So you can say since Tyson, this dude, when he puts the right hand on the chin, or if he grazes your temple or your ear, I mean, people are falling to the ground. If you watch his highlights on YouTube, again, nothing I could play on this video, but if you watch his highlights on YouTube, he hit a guy so hard that the dude started seizing up on the ground. Like, I mean, it was, that's some scary stuff. So this guy, when he touches you with the right hand, even if it just clips you, you're going to sleep. Call it Christmas. And, that's the end of, nobody's taking that punch. I mean, it's like getting hit with an anvil. But I found, so Tyson Fury, his biggest win, obviously against Vladimir Klitschko. And, I mean, some people thought that Klitschko was over the hill. It was still a good win for Tyson Fury. He was a big underdog in the fight and ended up winning the fight. So you have the power puncher in Deontay Wilder, and then you have the more technical fighter, the better boxer in Tyson Fury. He's not your regular, like he has a different style. Both of them actually have some weird styles. Deontay Wilder throws crazy, especially if he knows that you're wobbly. He's throwing everything he got. And that's why he's a good closer. Tyson Fury, again, is more of a boxer in the heavyweight division, which you usually don't see. In heavyweight, there's usually knockouts. My thing is that if this fight goes the distance, I believe Tyson Fury wins. If it doesn't go the distance, that means Tyson Fury is on his back trying to catch his breath or trying to remember where he's at. They're going to be at the Staples Center. Again, this is December 1st. And it's for Deontay Wilder's WBC heavyweight title. I mean, Anthony Joshua's not going to fight, but I mean, he's not going to fight either of these guys. But you can't ask for more. Yeah, you can't ask for more. So I'm excited about this fight. I can't wait to see it. I'm hoping that I'm able to find a way to watch the fight. So we'll see about that. But again, it's going to come down to whether Tyson Fury gets hit by the right hand. And if he does get hit by the right hand, I'm talking about, again, it doesn't have to hit him flush. If he clips him, Tyson Fury is going to feel that heat, because Tyson Fury has been on the ground before. And Deontay Wilder is probably the strongest puncher that he's faced. And a lot of people talk about Deontay Wilder being a one-trick pony. But I can tell you at 40-0, 39 KOs, that's a damn good trick. I can tell you that, because that right hand, again, if it touches you, you're going to sleep. You wake up, you got the smelling salts in your face. You got the people waving the finger in your face with the light checking to see, if you're awake. Like I said, he hit the dude so hard, and it didn't even look like it was that bad. Dude was, on the ground, looked like he was doing, Gangnam style. Looked like he was doing Thriller on the ground. So, I mean, it was crazy. But again, Tyson Fury, he's a great boxer. Again, he's more finesse than he is power. So it really comes down to whether he could avoid the power of Deontay Wilder. I think if he does that, I think he'll end up winning the fight. But again, you never know with boxing. You got corrupt judges, so the score can go either way. I'll be posting my score, maybe on Twitter, maybe on Instagram. But if you guys, make sure you follow both. But I'll definitely be scoring the rounds as I see them. But with boxing, you can't do that. You basically got to flip a coin. It's like the judges are watching the fight blindfolded, just flipping a coin to see who would win the round. Unless somebody gets put to the ground, and then obviously you can score that. But even that, you can't assume that the judges know how to score a fight. You got some judges out there that are there's people in their pockets. Let's just say that. But again, if you guys aren't doing anything on Saturday, make sure you watch the fight, Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. You got the Bronze Bomber versus the Gypsy King. Should be a great fight. I'm happy that we can get excited about a heavyweight fight in boxing. But again, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, King of the Game, Best in High School Sports Highlights. Make sure you guys follow them on Twitter and Instagram at KOTG Media. You can also go onto their website, KOTGmedia.com, and make sure you go there quick, because on Friday is the end of their sale. They're doing a Cyber Monday sale for the whole week. It ends on Friday at midnight, and everything on the site is on sale on the shop. So make sure you guys go ahead and take advantage of that. Get some good gear. This is one of the King of the Game shirts right here. Because I got game, but make sure you guys show support to that. Make sure you show support to this channel by following us. You don't have to donate anything. Just follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Anchor app, ANCHOR, or if you want to go online and listen to it online, it's Anchor, ANCHOR.FM, and then you can find us on there. If you go to chuckitup.xyz, you can also find the podcast on there. You can download Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify. This thing gets this podcast gets sent out to a whole bunch of different podcast apps. So make sure you guys check out for that. And all of them are listed on the Anchor app, so you can see where they're getting distributed. I usually like using Google Podcasts, so you can listen on there. But if you listen on Anchor app, you're able to give applause. You're able to send messages to me so I can put them on air and have you on the show, talking nonsense. Actually, don't talk nonsense, because you won't get on the show. Make sure you know what you're talking about. Make sure it makes sense. Again, I appreciate all your guys' support. So again, we're once we get more equipment, we're going to be moving to Twitch, so we can do live stream, so I can have you guys doing the chat while I'm doing the show. And then we can get more interaction rather than you guys watching the show and then sending me, something via DM on Instagram or on Facebook. We can have an interaction right there on Twitch, and again, it'll be live stream. So again, keep an eye out for that. I'll make sure I post that on the website, post that on Facebook, YouTube, whatever.
Silky Beat.